Hi, and thanks for visiting digitalphotographygear.com. I'm Darren Vance, and today we're going to be reviewing one of the most popular lenses, but one of the cheapest lenses in Canon's lineup, the Canon EF 50mm f1.8 II. Now, this lens is really popular with portrait and wedding photographers, but it's got a really low price, only $125, estimated retail price at Canon.com. Can any lens really be as good as its reputation says it is, with only a $125 price range? Let's find out. Now, the first impression you get when you pick up the lens is its size and its build quality. It feels like it's made out of solid plastic, right down to the EF mount, which is plastic instead of the usual metal. And with that plastic build, it's only 4.6 ounces. Very light and very small. You've got to admit, it looks just about half ridiculous on the gripped Rebel T1i. But I don't really care how it looks, just as long as it takes good pictures. Another great thing about this lens is it's only 1.6 inches and 6 elements in 5 groups. It's got a lot of light gathering capabilities, hence the f1.8 f-stop, which means it's a favorite for low light shooting as well as landscape shooting. Now, there are just a couple drawbacks to this lens. That plastic build makes it just a bit flimsy and apt to break once in a while from what I've gathered. But with that price, you can pretty much afford to replace it once in a while, like every year, and you'll still get plenty of use out of it. Now, at 50 millimeters and a 1.5 foot minimum focusing distance, this isn't a specialized macro lens or a telephoto. It doesn't focus close enough to be a macro lens, and it's not long enough to be a telephoto. It's more of Canon's in-between portrait and wedding lens. But it'll also do some pretty good landscapes and all-around shots. That's what I'm about to test out. As you can see behind me, I've got some nice pine trees with some snow on. I think that'll make a pretty good picture. And let's see how good the legendary Nifty 50, as it's called, measures up. Now, one of the drawbacks of this lens is it's not a USM lens, which means it's really a little bit noisy and slow with focus. But for most shots taken with this lens, you're not going to be focusing on fast-moving objects anyways, which means you can take your time, and even manual focus if you have to. As you can see there, it's got some pretty nice sharpness on the front of the pine needles. It doesn't seem bad at all for sharpness. That short lens and amazing light gathering really gives you a lot of light. Again, they're not bad at all. I had to crank it up to f5 to cut down on the light a little bit. And on a fairly overcast day like today, that's not a bad problem to have, is having too much light with a lens. As you can probably hear from that loud background noise, I've got some chickens around the place, and I thought that's a good way to test out a new lens, is try a chicken. Now, this little rooster is wooting, and I think he's just a bit scared by all the big cameras around. But he should still give us some nice sharpness tests with those little feathers. Scared, bud? Now, the problem with doing these focus tests on anything alive is that they'll never cooperate. Now, as you can see there, the Nifty 50 did a pretty good job at picking up even the little subtle details in the feathers. Every little line is shown fairly well. I think this little guy's getting a little bit cold, so I'm going to take him back for now. Well, we tested with the rooster, but I thought it'd be a good idea to walk around and test some other things. Now, as you can see, we've got some interesting grass that grows around here, and I thought I'd make some nice tests for focus. Now there we had just a bit of trouble locking on again. And you hear that non-USM motor grinding and creaking as it tries desperately to focus. But like I said before, most of the things you're shooting with this won't be moving real fast, so you can usually take your time and even use manual focus, which is another interesting part about this lens. The manual focus is clear out here on the end, which makes it kind of hard to grip. Clearly crisp there again on the edges of the plant. You can see there. Old posts where the birds, wild birds sometimes nest in. That'll be kind of interesting. So what is my final verdict on the Canon Nifty 50, as it's called? Well, so far, I like it. It's got really nice image quality, and when you consider that those pictures came from only a $125 lens, you've really got to respect it. And especially if you get to shooting in low light, I think that's the lens I'd pick up most of the time. And unless you want to go to something like the 16 to 35 f2.8L for about $1,600, I think that's the lens that you're going to want to use. It's incredibly good at low light, and even though it's not specifically geared toward macro photography, you can still get some fairly good shots at macro, like on these pine branches here. Now, I know there are some of you that would prefer not to buy anything but an L, and I'm one of those people. But this is one exception that I'd have to consider. It's really sharp, and for the price, you're not going to be out of a lot of money if it's not exactly the sharpest lens. It's a good lens to put on if there's another non-photographer buddy that wants to try out your camera, or if you want the kids to be able to take a couple shots. And even if the dogs are around and paw prints on the front, it's not going to be your L lens getting ruined. Thanks for watching. I hope this review is helpful, and as always, thanks for visiting digitalphotographygear.com. I'm Darren Vance, and I'll see you next time.